I'm still working on my... I'm losing yarn! Hello and welcome to Mandobug Crafts, episode 119. What's up everybody? My name's Amanda, but you may know me on the internet as Mandobug, and this is my crafty podcast where I hopefully inspire you on your making journey as I share mine. In this video, I've got crochet design, knitting, and spinning to talk about, so a little bit of everything. There should be links to skip around in the description box below. Let's start out with something I've learned. I learned another lesson the hard way. It's my favorite way to learn, I guess. I submitted a design to a magazine. It got accepted, and then it came time to make the design, and I did all the math for it. I'm like, great, we're good to go. I've got my stitch pattern that I picked out for a part of the pattern. I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I don't really know how much I can actually share. So there is a section of the pattern that has a stitch pattern in it that I pulled from my favorite crochet stitch dictionary. Love this thing. And it tells you at the beginning of the stitch how many stitches the repeat is, you know. This one happened to be 17 plus 2, which is when you count the beginning chain as a double crochet. So it's really 17, especially if you're working in the round. You don't have to worry about that plus 2 part. So the stitch count was 17, which is already not the best number to be working with because it really is not divisible by anything. So, and then like when you add it again, it's not divisible. So like when you're working in a stitch pattern of something like 17, it's awkward to increase because it's not an even number. And then when you do increase, like, if you want the repeat to happen again, you need another 17 stitches for a full even repeat. So that was already a mess. But I loved the design so much that I was like, I'm using it. What I didn't consider, and this is the learning moment for me that cost me several hours of work. Like, just like having flashbacks to hours of math. This stitch pattern changed stitch count each row. So it's a 7 stitch repeat and it's a 6 row repeat. And each row is a different stitch number, a different number of total stitches. I will say it's a multiple of stitches. So it's not like a different number of the same. It's not like it's double crochet and then 17 and then 15 and then 17. It's a combination of stitches so that the stitch pattern still takes up the same amount of space, but the stitch count is different. This threw everything off in my design because there was some complicated shaping to it. I was using that 17 as my basis for everything. So when it came time to do some of the math, it wasn't working. And then I had to go back. I finally found what the problem was, that it's not as multiple of 17 every row. And then I was able to go in and fix the areas where it wasn't matching. So if something ended on row 2 of the repeat and that was a multiple of 15, then my stitch count would be different. And if I wanted to add to it, I would add in a multiple of 15. Do you guys kind of see where I'm going here? I had two complicated designs clashing to be done at the same time. This whole week has been nothing but math and so many numbers and so much writing that I need a palette cleanser. I need something simple. So I haven't started anything simple yet, but I know that that's what's going to be coming down the line because I am just, So learn from me, please. If you ever want to modify a pattern, create a design off of a stitch dictionary, or you are a designer, check the stitch count for each row of something like a lace design, just to make sure that that stitch count is the same for every row, because I just assumed it was. It was not. It threw everything off. So that is something I've learned since I've last recorded. Moving on to finished objects. So I did finish that magazine design. I lucked out. I didn't catch this mistake when I made my sample because it worked for my sample piece, but when it came time for the rest of the pattern, it wasn't matching there. And so the sample was ready way in advance, but you have to mail the pattern with the sample. So I couldn't actually send it out until the pattern was done. So I think that took me 3 days alone because I had to sit there and like row by row and double check myself to make sure it did in fact work. So that is done and gone. And then the other thing that I've been working on that is finished is some spinning samples. So I consider them finished because they are in a final form. Like once you spin fiber into a yarn, you can now work with it. So why don't I start with my sample, wait, hold on a second. So let's start with this one. So if you saw a couple episodes back, I did a test spin for a friend who is a indie yarn dyer who is working on translating basically their dye process over to fiber, which fiber is a little more sensitive. So they wanted me to test out the fiber to see, hey, does this felt the fiber? What is the quality like? What do you think? Thoughts, opinions? Test it for me. So it's like a pattern tester, but for spinning. So I did that. This is like 2 ounces roughly of 100% Falkland wool. And it, after washing, it fluffed up so much. It's just nice and this is such a fluffy yarn. Now, Falkland isn't the softest wool. It's not up there with your superfine merinos. It's a little bit toothier, but I would say that it's on par with some of the higher micron merinos that are available in the market. I would probably guess, you know, like in the 20 range, a low 20. I'm not sensitive to wool, so for me, this could be a next to skin sweater without any irritation, but for someone who's sensitive, maybe not. It would still make a great accessory for something that's outside, not touching your skin. I went ahead and worked this up into a swatch. Here is the knit swatch, and look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? So pretty. So the fiber was like a variegated looking type of dye job on the wool. I've got video of that I can share with you. So you can see that it's got like pinks and reds and blues and purples going on. So when I spun this, I just spun it straight. I didn't split it up or pre-draft it or anything. I just spun straight from the giant chunk of roving. I thought this would be the best way to sample this spin for the dyer. And I did run into like 1 or 2 areas that were sticky. I wouldn't say felted because it wasn't like I didn't have to pull them apart at all. It just was a little stickier. Like I don't know how else to explain it other than there was a little more resistance than the rest of the braid, but like nothing to barely even bat an eye at. I would say it was definitely on par with other hand-dyed braids of wool that I've bought that I consider high quality. So sometimes what ends up happening, I think, with the like hand-dyed roving is that in some of the areas where the color is super concentrated, it tends to just to do that. It's not really felting, just makes it a little more sticky. But yeah, so I spun my single and then I chain plied it back on itself, or Navajo plied it. I've heard it called that as well, which is basically like a crochet chain, is taking the single and chaining it and then adding twists to it, and that will turn one single into a 3-ply. And so it keeps the colors together. And so there's this gorgeous blend and color change. I just love the way that it knit up. And I love that you can't buy yarn that looks like this. You have to spin it. And it just makes it super special. And the swatch is nice and stretchy. The wool has great memory. It has great drape. I really enjoyed this Falkland wool and I highly recommend it if you've never tried it. Here's the crochet swatch. So because of this is double crochet, it does have the same amount of drape. So we've got drape here. But because of the height of the double crochet, you can see that the color blocks a little bit more, but still I think it looks really great and I like it. I like the way that it turned out. I like the knit swatch better, but I like the way they both worked up. Honestly, overall, I had a great time spinning this fiber, and I'm glad I got to test it. It was really fun. And then the other 2 fibers that I spun up were for the Paradise Fibers Fiber of the Month Club for July, so you may have already seen that video that I put up I'll put a card and a link down below if you're interested. But this one, my goodness. So I pulled from the inside of my cake, so it's all floppy, but don't let it deceive you. This is gorgeous, gorgeous wool, bamboo, silk. I think there might be nylon in here too. I'll have to double check. It is luxury. And it was so great to spin. It spun like butter. And this tweed in here, I believe it's the sari silk pieces. And silk tends to be pretty grabby. So when I was spinning this, none of the Tweedy bits fell out. The roving was so well blended. And then the fact that these silk Tweedy bits are so grabby, like, I've lost tweed in roving and bats before when I was spinning it. Not this time. Every little Tweedy bit was Tweedy bit was captured. And I did the same thing. I did a single and I chain plied it back on itself. So I have extra tweed because instead of like tweed here, tweed there, all out, it was folded back. So it's like 3 times as much tweed as you would have in a space versus if you did a traditional 2-ply or a traditional 3-ply. But look how cool it looks when you work it up. Like, it was worth it. Here's the knit swatch. I love that amount of tweed. I don't think it's too much. Look at that. Oh, this is so yummy. So this bamboo that's been blended into it, it just gives it so much extra drape. And despite there being tweed in this, look at how consistent that tension is. So I was still able to spin it pretty consistently so that I could actually make something that fits because I have a consistent gauge here. I wouldn't have to plan on an accessory where the size didn't really matter, which is really exciting. I don't think I would make this color for an entire garment, but maybe as an accent color, or maybe if they offer this blend in another color, maybe orange, just saying. I would love that so much. And even in crochet too, look at this. It crochets up beautifully too. Beautifully. And if this is not your color, I urge you to look past the color and look at the hand. Look at the hand of this. Sometimes you have to strip the color and go, okay, but what if they offer this in another color? What? Like the tweed, the gauge is still consistent for crochet as well. And the drape, just come on. This is great. So I really enjoyed spinning this Aurora blend from the July box, and I really do hope they have more colors. I know this color is the only one that came in the box, but sometimes when they get a blend like this, they sell more of it, and sometimes in more colors. So I'm hoping to see more fiber like this one because I was super impressed by this one. The other fiber that came in my box was a multicolored braid of blended merino. So it's all the colors in the roving not blended. As you spin it, it starts to blend into itself. And this is what it ended up looking like for me. So there's some variegation going on in the individual plies. I did chain ply this one as well, which is going to keep, it plies it back on itself. So it takes your length and it's a third shorter. So even though it keeps the colors together, if the color distance is short, and you chain ply, it makes it even shorter. So, but it does keep your colors together. So that's what happened here. And because the colors all play so well together, it doesn't look muddy or anything. I really like the way that it turned out. And those short color repeats, you can see them here. So when you look at something that's like this, it's got the knit rows, it's just like not even a full row of a color before it blends into the next and then back again. So it's like a soft variegated is the way that I like to describe this one, because it is a variegated yarn, but it like blends into each other. So it's like a soft variegated. It is your traditional merino, not the super fine, some of the little bit toothier merino, still next to skin soft, but you know, I would say it's definitely on par with good quality merino wool and what you would expect from a merino wool. It's got good drape, good memory, and great color. I really like the way the crochet swatch turned out. It almost reminds me of the way that watercolor plays when you work with it, and the color spreads out like that, where you have the lighter colored areas and then the darker colored areas kind of all swirling and pooling, but it's not as stark of a contrast as like heavily variegated yarn. That's why I like to call it soft variegated. Moving on to works in progress, I'm still working on my I'm losing yarn. I'm still working on my Nightmare Before Christmas inspired cardigan by Altknots. I am excited to finish this cardigan. I finally have a break in my crochet time now that those designs that I committed to are out. I can work on things that have been neglected. It would be the best way to describe it. So I've been showing off this cardigan every podcast episode with very little progress each episode. I'm hoping, it's not even hoping, I know that I'm going to finish this soon. This is up on my list of priorities because it's so fun and I want to see how it's going to turn out. So I've got my left back and my right back sewn together, and my left front and my right front sewn together, and I'm working on the sleeves. I've got my left sleeve completed, and I'm using its template, its shape. I modified her pattern to do a tapered sleeve. Right, should match right about there after seaming. So it's really not that bad. I thought it was going to be too short, but considering where it joins on the sleeve, it's going to be just fine. And I love the way this looks right now. Okay, look at that. So I'm using this sleeve, this tapered sleeve shape that I came up with to patchwork together Sally's sleeve. So I'm literally just using fingering weight scraps held double. As you saw them fall out of my bag, I just went through my stash and started grabbing partial leftovers. Like, I found this one because I'm running out of colors. I don't want to repeat too many of the same colors because I really want it to look extra scrappy. And so originally I had only pulled out like maybe 6 colors for Sally's side. And after I'd used them all, I was like, I need more colors. So I went stash diving a bit deeper and I found this one. And I was like, how have I not used this one yet? So this yarn is called Oogie Boogie, and this was part of a yarn club that I did, well, that I bought. Oh my gosh. I don't remember how long ago, like 6 years ago maybe. It's from Penguin Soup. She's not currently dyeing, although if you go check out her Instagram, I think she was destashing a bunch of yarns that she had dyed. She's not in a place to dye right now, and I really hope that one day she can dye again because I love her yarn, and this was one of them. So I've already made myself a pair of fingerless mitts out of this yarn. So while it might look like mostly full, it's probably like 50 grams, but this is scrap yarn for me. This is stash. This is extra, and I really like the way that my fingerless mitts turned out. So I need to add this into my sleeve. So like I said, fingering weight held double, mostly scrap yarns, mostly Halloween inspired, just because that's what I mostly buy. I would say I've got primarily yarn from Knitty and Color and Schmutzerella yarns going on Sally's side, and then all of the black is Shopple Wool Bio Merinos, which is a 90% wool, 10% linen blend. And again, I'm holding them all double using a 6.0 millimeter crochet hook. The entire cardigan is single crochet, and she's got instructions for like a great basic layout that are based on your measurements, so you can use any weight yarn, and then you can start modifying and playing from there. So I highly recommend this pattern as like a great recipe style pattern to get started on something like this. But yeah, I am literally just making this up as I go. I have another part to the sleeve. So my sleeve is in sections right now because I am just trying to make pieces that need to be patchwork together. This is already got shaping on it, and I showed this in the last episode. So this is going to be the bottom of the sleeve, and there's shaping up this side. I started making this kind of rectangle piece and adding some triangles or half squares, however you want to look at them, and then that's going to get added horizontally to the top of the sleeve. It's really hard to try to show all this together. What I was thinking, I don't know if that's the direction that I want the colors to go. I might reverse it the other direction, but yeah. And then I think it's really gonna all be tied together once I get the decorative black stitching on. So yeah, I'm slowly making my way through that. I do think I decided to do the side panels. I know that I was chatting in the comments, and because someone had recommended maybe do side panels to take up space so that this doesn't get lost. Because if I just sew the two sides together, because I didn't put any positive ease into my measurement, so if you do follow that recipe, add some positive ease into your width measurement so that you have more of a front. So when I sew my sides together, it's going to pull my fronts back, and if I just add a bunch of black here, half of the front on each side will be black, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but I'd rather have it more color and less of a black ribbing front. So I'm going to add black along my left and right sides under my underarm, which is going to be seaming my sleeves kind of weird, but I'm just going to go with it and see what happens. So I have been enjoying working on this now that those other two patterns that I had to finish are done and out. So I've got a little bit of a yarn haul to share with you. I don't typically buy like tons and tons of yarn, so I don't typically have yarn hauls to show, but I did buy some more yarn that I wanted to share off on the podcast. And you may have already seen one of them already because I just did a live stream with Mocha, who is Kim, of Unapologetically Mocha Crochet and Crafts YouTube channel. If you haven't seen that, definitely go back and give it a watch. We swatched this yarn live and shared our opinions, me as a knitter, her as a crocheter, and we got to know Mocha a little bit better as well. And then I always go on side tangents about random stuff. Live streams are just a fun time. I really enjoy them. So the yarn that we swatched is Hobie Rainbow Bamboo, and it is a 60% bamboo viscose, 40% cotton yarn. And I got 5 balls in the plum colorway to make a top. So I swatched with this yarn live, like I said, and I haven't quite finished my swatch yet. I didn't get very far because this is a sport weight yarn. It is finer. I was knitting my swatch on a size like 1.5, I think it is, 2.75 millimeter. And so yeah, I think we discovered in the live that my swatch got really pilly. There are quite a few pills on here, and hers didn't. So I am going to try crocheting a swatch, and then I might end up crocheting the top that I had in mind for this yarn. So I think that's going to look really pretty on me. So that is part of my yarn haul. The other 2 yarns that I got I'm really excited about. Are we surprised that this yarn is primarily orange? And oh wow, look at that. Is that not almost the same color in there? Slightly different. So this is Happy Sheep Magic Sock Wool, 70% wool, 30% nylon. It's a single ply, fingering weight, gorgeous gradient. So you've got 400 meters per 100 grams in this yarn, and I thought I just wanted to get my hands on it, see what it felt like, and maybe work with it. Its appearance, its colors remind me of Zobber balls. Like Zobber Ball 100s. Well, it wouldn't be 100s because 100 is 100% wool, and then the other one has nylon in it, but not this much of a nylon content. I think that a regular Zobber Ball is 80-20. It might be 75-25, but I think it's 80-20. This is 70-30, 70 wool, 30 nylon. So there is a lot more nylon, and you can feel that. So this yarn feels more like nylon than it does like wool, and it's not the softest. Like it reminds me of the Falkland, actually. Yeah, like if you added some nylon to this Falkland is exactly what it feels like. So do keep in mind that it's not like a super fine, super soft wool. It is, I would say, like an average type of wool. But what I thought this would be really fun for is just like a long gradient shawl. So, and like I said, I wanted to get my hands on it, see what it felt like, see what it worked up like. And I also wanted to get my hands on some of the Super Kid Silk from Mayflower. So this is 76% mohair and 24% silk. And I've only ever worked with a mohair blend one time. I've got this crochet cowl that I never released. I never even shared it. It was a DK weight yarn held with a strand of lace weight mohair, which is what this is. I'm pretty sure this is a lace weight. You got 25 grams, 195 meters, and the strand itself of the silk. Let me see if I can get a strand out. Here we go. The strand itself of silk is very fine, lace weight, but that mohair gives it a halo that allows you to work it up into a thicker gauge that is kind of transparent. Or you can hold it with another yarn to tone it down. So this is what I think I'm going to do. I need to swatch and see what this is even going to look like first, but I was thinking about holding these two together, and to make sure I had enough, I got two, and working up just one fun asymmetrical shawl, something mindless. I need, like I said, I need a palette cleanser, and I think this is going to be my palette cleanser. Just cast on or beginning chain and just follow the shape. And this yarn does the work for me. That's the idea. I have like an asymmetrical zigzag design in mind, which it's like, zigzag, you still have to pay attention to where your increases and decreases are, so it's not completely mindless, but also it's memorizable, so it's that fine line. I haven't decided for sure. I will know when I start swatching and get some time to sketch something up what exactly I'm gonna do. But yeah, that is my yarn haul. And then moving on to check it out. So yes, I am bringing back check it out for this episode. I don't know if I'm gonna have it every episode going forward or not. I used to do this episodes ago. If you've been around for a while, you know what I'm talking about. Check it out is a segment that I would share something that I think you should go check out because I think you would like it. And for this episode, I wanted to talk about a new blog. So I've been chatting with Lacey, and you may know her if you show up on my Saturday morning live streams. She's usually there hanging out in the chat with me, and she is a crocheter in love with indie dyed yarns. She is the person to go to find out the sweet deals and the sweet yarn. And so she decided to start a blog called Crochet Libra, crochetlibra.com, and she is going to be writing about crochet and indie dyed yarns to use with crochet, the patterns, the yarns, all of that. I think this is really exciting and fun because I don't see a lot of crocheters talking about indie dyed yarns. I do kind of see this new market opening up where designers are using indie dyed yarns more and more, which is very fun and exciting because you didn't used to see that at all. Like, fun fact, when I designed Hollow Web, which is a fingering weight crochet shawl, I was on the first search page of Ravelry because there were no fingering weight crochet shawls, to the point that how me and Schmutzarella did our crochet along back in 2016 was she was getting ready for a fiber festival and wanted crochet samples and went looking and found my pattern and then realized it was mine, and she was like, I know her, because there were none. There were hardly any fingering weight crochet patterns available online, at least I will say online. But now if you go on to a search base like Ravelry or Pinterest, it's everywhere. Fingering weight indie dyed yarn is becoming more and more popular with crocheters, and I really get excited about that. So Crochet Libra, Lacey, she's put out at least one blog post so far, and she featured me in it, which is super exciting as well. She wrote a post about crochet designers that she's hooked on, is what it was, and she talked about me in that post, as well as 3 other great crochet designers. So I recommend that you go check it out. Go give some love and show support for crocheters getting excited about finer weight, natural fibers, and indie dyed yarn as well. Not that that's better than acrylic, it's just new. The acrylic crocheters have been around for a long time, and now it's like we get both. All of the fiber for everyone, and that's what's exciting for me. So check it out. Moving on to Let's Chat, which is the less fibery content related chat. I've really just been playing catch up since the last time that I recorded because I got sick, and I talked about that in the last episode. I'm still playing catch up from being sick, which has taught me that I really need to do a better job planning downtime. I saw this quote, and I don't remember if I've talked about it on the podcast before or not, but basically, if you don't plan rest days, your body will force you to rest on its own schedule, basically until you burn yourself out, which you shouldn't do. I tend to be one of those people that gets so excited about stuff, I'm just going and going and going and going and going, and I really lose focus of it's like this experience in my mind where I'm not paying attention to my body anymore. And so I don't realize how tired I am because I'm so excited and absorbed in what I'm doing that I'm not listening to those cues of sleep, hunger, and just general rest anyways, like mental rest, which is another reason I need to make a schedule to get back on to regular meditation because that helps me a lot, or even just daily spinning. Because spinning works as meditation for me. It stops my mind from racing all the time. But yeah, all of that to say, I need to plan downtime so that I can get sick and not have to play catch up like this because it's been kicking my butt. Other than that, the two big things that have been going on in my household are we have been transitioning my youngest daughter to her crib. So I co-sleep for the first couple of months until I can get them weaned off of night feedings, and then they get into their crib, and that's where we're at with her. So it's kind of been a slow process, but we're getting there. Things are slowly starting to ease up, and she's falling into a nice sleep schedule, which is relieving for me. And then my older two kids started soccer, and this has been so much fun. They haven't really been in any sort of sports before. Emily had done dance for a little while, and then we talked about putting Jack in soccer, and she wanted to try, so we dropped dance, and now we're in soccer, and they are both in love. It's a great sport to watch because I can bring my crochet and sit in the little fold-out chair and crochet and or knit along and watch them play, and it's really fun. And it looks like I might be becoming a soccer mom in my minivan. So I don't mind it though. I've really been enjoying watching them, and they're very excited, and it keeps them healthy, fit, active, and not bored during the summer. So that's everything I wanted to talk about in this episode. Let me know in the comments below, have you crocheted with mohair? I have knit and crocheted with it, but I know that it doesn't seem to be as popular in crochet, and I want to see it showing up. So, have you crocheted with mohair? Would you be interested in crocheting with mohair, or is it not for you? Can you not stand the touch? Can you not stand working with it? Can you not stand the fact that you can't rip it out? Because that's a real thing. So let me know in the comments below, and until next episode, guys, happy crafting. Bye!